Hello everyone, I'm Gord. I'm the designer of board games like Santorini and math puzzles. Today I am going to show you a puzzle that was inspired by a mathematician way back in 1911 called Otto Toeplitz. And in this you have a grid paper and you get to draw a loop, and each section of the loop you just are going north, east, west, or south. So there's no diagonals whenever you're drawing your taxi cab loop. So imagine you're going through a city and you are taking this route and you just keep on going round and round this route, looking for passengers perhaps. Okay, so that's the first step, is you're going to be designing one of these taxi cab loops. Then you hand this off to an enemy in your classroom. Okay, and your enemy has to find a square. And the square has to be such that all four corners of the square lie on this loop. And if you look at that for a second, you might think, okay, well, I could choose this one, and this one, and this one, and oops, you see, this one is not on the square, so this did not work. So these four corners of this square do not work. But you could say, I've got an idea. I'm going to choose this corner, and this corner, and this corner, and this corner. And those ones do lie very nicely, all of them on the original loop. So this would be you winning. Okay, so let's go back to the first person. They are trying again to make a taxi cab loop that the other person cannot solve. And they see this and they say, I know how to do it. I'm going to go like this, and then I'm just going to eat a little bit out of this side, and maybe like that. Okay, so is this solvable? Well, certainly it looks like this is not going to work the first time I look at it. But then you realize, oh, I could choose this point, and this point, and this point, and this point. Is that a square? Well, you can see that I'm going over 3, down 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. So it looks very symmetric, and indeed that is a good way to create squares on graph paper. Okay, and indeed this is a square. So you've again solved it. Okay, so back to the drawing board for the other person. How are they going to create some loop? And we don't want these loops to be really big. So let's say that the maximum size of a loop is, it has to be contained within 7 by 7 dots. Okay, something like that. It doesn't have to be strict, but I'd say it can't be huge. Okay, let's try. Maybe this is a good way to do it. Like this. Maybe I'll go over there. Maybe like that. So maybe you want to think about this for a little while and see if you can come up with a square that you cannot find a square. Okay, I think I've got one. So you can turn off the video if you want to look for it yourself. But here is my square. So I could choose, oh, I'm wrong. Oh yeah, no, here. I could choose this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So really, I think this is the same square as we find over here. So that was certainly disappointing for the person who designed the original loop. Okay, and you know what? I don't think this is not even the only square, because look, you could take this and this, and so 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. You could take those ones, and this is also a square. Oh, it's a disaster. So that's your first challenge. is come up with a loop that your enemy in the class cannot solve. Okay? Cannot find a square that all four corners touch the edges of your loop. Your first challenge. Your second challenge is to find a loop where your enemy in the class cannot find more than one square. They can find one square, but they can't find more than one. Why this new puzzle? Because I haven't been able to solve the first puzzle. I have not been able to find a loop where there does not exist at least one square. Maybe it exists, but I haven't been able to find it. Now, of course, there is a trivial square that we're going to rule out. Of course, you can't give your partner this little square here and say, "Ha, you see that little square? I dare you to try to find two different squares that do not share two different squares that all of the vertices are on this loop." And of course you can find one, but of course you can't find two different ones. So of course we're going to rule out that little silly counterexample. So yeah, you have to come up with a loop that your enemy in the class cannot find more than one square. They can find one square, but they can't find more. So for example, this one here, can you find another square to go in here? And sure we can, because we can do the same thing. We can just rotate it the other way here. And this here is a perfect example of another square. Good. Okay. Next week, I am going to give you a solution for the second one of these puzzles. If any of you find a loop that cannot be solved, that you can't find a single square, then I want to see it in a big way. So I don't think that exists, but it might. It might. Good. Till next week.